Well, let's face it, it's been an exhausting week, and yet even before we began, we knew historically that this was going to be a tough week. With that said, we also know historically that the next week or two could be a bottoming process. It has been in the past, and for both traders and for long-term buy and holders. So one of the things we want to do is looking through the history, graphs and charts. The one thing that we don't see when we look at it is we don't see the emotional toll, right? You can't see what people were thinking about and feeling when they were in the thick of all of this. And so that's the kind of thing that's hard to really adjust to. On paper, it says we should be buying, but how do we do that? How do we deal with the real life? I want to bring in two of the best to help us through this. Market Gauge Managing Director Michelle Snyder, along with Kingsview Wealth Management CIO Scott Martin. And Michelle, again, the seasonality chart this year has been amazing. I mean, it's almost mirrored, like perfect, right? And this week, next week, some toughness. But if history holds out, we start to turn up. Who knows what it could be? But how do we get from here to there? How are you going to do that?
Well, since you did such a great introduction about technical analysis, I thought I'd bring something that might be a little bit of a different perspective than what you usually hear, which is about the daily and the weekly chart, and that's looking at a monthly chart. So if we look at the monthly chart, there's an 80-month moving average, which really is about a 6 to 7 year business cycle. We've been above that in the small caps, the transportation, and the retail, right? The three key U.S. economic sectors and index for really 11 years, except if you take away the one blip during the pandemic. And right now, we're not sitting anywhere near it in the SPY or in the NASDAQ, but we're sitting right on it in those three areas: Russell's, retail, transportation. So what that tells me is that even if we pierce it a little bit, if we come back through it, or the selling dries up and we start to move up from these levels or even a little bit lower, then it could be we are washed out, in which case we would start looking for opportunity. Right. However, if that fails, I think we have a lot more downside and big problems with recession.
All right, so that's the big test. At least we're there. We know it's there, and we can kind of mark that. Scott, what are you doing right here?
I was thinking about going to hide under the desk after Michelle's comments, but I'll stay with you. Because, Charles, I'd like to answer your question very kind of succinctly, and I think it's a lot of things that a lot of us can understand. When it feels like when you buy that next stock, whether it's Home Depot, Costco, AMLP, which is pipelines, Cleveland Cliffs, stuff that we're buying, KSS, which is coals, when it feels so sick to your stomach that you're putting in that buy order, it feels so wrong, it's got to be right. Because you remember times when the market has gone way up, as you mentioned with Belsky before, last name basis with me and Brian, first name. It's like the market goes crazy on the emotional side, as you noted, Charles, to the upside, and it feels like, no, there's no way. We can't sell this. The stock's going to the sky. It's similar on the downside, my friend, where the emotional takeover of your almost visceral reaction to buying stocks here, as it is today, and probably will be on Monday or Tuesday, that's when you've got to jump in and start legging in with some of that additional cash to names that you like that are strong, tried and true, good balance sheets, dividends, etc.
Yeah, and it's ironic because if people think about how they feel on the euphoric end of that, it's right. Everyone feels like, okay, it's made a big move. We're here. I went too long with a couple of guests. I'm going to shortchange both of you. I apologize for that. But I will note, Michelle, you were looking at TLT. That's on my screen as well. So at least we'll give something for them to kind of take a look at. Great.